Good evening, I'm Nolan Dalla, and welcome to the NFL week number 4. Last week is the first time I've ever done this, and what that means is I actually did a video of all the NFL games of week number 3 last week. Had a really good week. I don't know if it was the process or maybe overthinking a lot of the games where I really spent a lot of time not just writing up and thinking and handicapping the games, but also coming to you and trying to put this in a video presentation. Anyway, I worked pretty hard and it paid off with 11 winners and 5 losers. So if you look at week number 3 and what I did here on the video, 11 winners, 5 losers for something like 68, 69%. I'll take that any day of the week, any week of the year, I'll take those numbers forever. 11-5, I'll take it. I don't know if we'll do that every time. We certainly won't. But because handicapping is a lot of ups and downs, and that's certainly one of the ups so far with week 3. Let's get into week number 4. We have a number of games this week, including the London game that's being played. But we are doing this video on Friday night. And last night we had the New York Giants playing at the Washington Redskins. That game's already over. New York won that game, as many of you already know. Let's start with all the games. Let's go all the way down. First of all, let's start with that London game, which is the Miami Dolphins playing at Oakland. Oakland's listed as the home team, but this game, of course, as we said, is in London. This game is lined at the Miami Dolphins are -4, and the total up at 42.5. 40.5, excuse me. So 40.5, and the Dolphins a 4.5 favorite right in there. Game played in London. I think this is a game where we probably take the dog, the Oakland Raiders. A little bit of a surprise, I know, but Miami's situation doesn't. They seem to be really having some problems on all sides of the ball. Certainly at quarterback, offensive line, defense. Miami has not looked good since that second half that they played in week 1 against the New England Patriots. They were down 17-7 in that game at halftime, but everything seemed to get to come together where the Dolphins scored, I think, something like 30 points in the second half of that game. Other than that, those 30 minutes of football in 3 games this season, the Miami Dolphins have looked terrible. Now, Oakland hasn't looked much better, but you can really give the Raiders some credit here. First of all, they played the Jets tough in week 1. They played the Jets, losing by 5, covering the spread, losing to Houston in game 2. And then last week, a big shocker, 16-9. 16-9, the New England Patriots barely beat the Oakland Raiders. So the Oakland Raiders have 2 covers this season. This is not a team that I want to back with a lot of confidence, and certainly with Carr starting and a lot of youth and a lot of, questions about the coaching staff of the Raiders. This is not a team I normally want to back, but I think the wrong team, I should say the team that's favored is probably favored by the wrong number here. I make this 3 tops. I think with catching the 3, getting the push on the 4 is really a compelling wager on makes for a compelling wager on the dog, which is the Oakland Raiders. So I'll take the 4 there. I'll also bet over this total at 40.5. I misspoke earlier. It's 40.5. These games in London tend to be a little higher scoring than normal. I should go back and look at the 10-12 year record, but there's a lot of things that play into this, and maybe it's just the differences in certainly the travel and going over there, and maybe it hurts the defensive preparation a little more. The grass field should not be a problem. Early in this series, when they used to play in London, they'd have that grass and it would be thicker and kind of a mulch. Used to be played at Wembley Stadium where there was a kind of a real thick mulch, and no one could get their footing very well because it was a sodded grass field. That situation apparently is not a problem anymore. So we'll have a faster track in London. Hopefully no rain, or that could certainly be an issue. But I'll go over in this game, over the 40.5. I'll take the dog, which is the Oakland Raiders. The next game on the board, the Green Bay Packers playing at Chicago. Green Bay is really in a desperate situation here at 1-2, losing badly to the Detroit Lions last week. And it's very hard to go on the road for 2 straight divisional games. This is a tough spot for the Packers, yet they're favored by -1, -2. That's where you see the line right now. The total right there at 43. So this is a situation where I'm going to play the Packers. There's a number of reasons. First of all, the Chicago Bears have played marvelously the last 2 weeks. After opening up at home against the Buffalo Bills and losing that game in a bit of a surprise, they went into San Francisco, pulled off somewhat of a miraculous upset at the very end, scoring, I think, overcoming a 17-point deficit, something like that, in San Francisco. And then Chicago goes into the New York Jets and pretty much shuts them down despite missing 4 or 5 defensive starters. And Chicago really showed certainly a lot of character there. Whatever the injury problems were certainly haven't shown. They didn't show last week. But I think this is a really tough spot for the Bears. Coming back with a lot of momentum, you don't see teams coming back after big wins, a couple of wins on the road, and then coming back home and being able to sustain a lot of that, especially against what I view here as the hungrier, maybe even more desperate team. Packers have not played well really this season in any of the 3 games, except for, you could say, the second half where they came back against the Jets in Week 2. I made this mistake last week by laying the small number with the Green Bay Packers, but I'm willing to do it here because, you know, fool me once, shame on you, you know, fool me twice. It may be one of those situations, but I am going to play the Green Bay Packers in this game. No opinion on the total. The Buffalo Bills are playing at Houston. Here's a golden under play. The total is right there around 41, one of the lower totals on the board. But first of all, you have the Houston Texans, which do not, this is a Fitzsimmons quarterback team. They do not do a lot of deep passing. They don't run any kind of a hurry-up offense. This is a very methodical, plotting type of system that the Texans are running. They also have one of the very best defenses in the NFL statistically right now. Of course, they played Oakland, the New York Giants, and the Washington Redskins. That being said, I do believe that Houston will be successful shutting down the Buffalo Bills, which really looked completely lost last week in that home loss to San Diego. E.J. Manuel is the quarterback for the Bills. A lot of questions about whether he has the capacity to throw the ball downfield and score a lot of points. He really hasn't proven that during his career. I always thought of him as a good game manager, someone who doesn't take a lot of risks, a fairly high touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, Manuel is the kind of quarterback I like to back because there's not a lot of uncertainty. He doesn't throw 50 times a game, and those are really the teams I tend to like to bet on. But in this situation, I think it's a really bad spot for the visiting Buffalo Bills, who have to go in and play one of the very, very best defenses in the NFL. Houston's not going to probably score many points. The Buffalo Bills will be hard-pressed to score really, many points at all. So I'm willing to go under this total, which is right there at 41. I'm also going to lay the number, which is -3 with the Houston Texans. I think the Texans are a better team right now. Both teams are 2-1. I think the Houston Texans come away after this game at 3-1. I'm willing to lay the -3 with the Texans. Tennessee Titans are playing at Indianapolis. Very, very tough spot for the Titans here. Reason is they're going on the road for the 2nd consecutive week. They've looked horrific the last 2 weeks. They played at home against Dallas, got whipped by 16 points. Then they go into Cincinnati. They were losing, I think, at one point 30 to nothing or something like that, and they scored a late touchdown. But the Titans are really a mess offensively. Jake Locker, reports are he's not throwing with any sense of accuracy. There's some problems with him, I guess, in this system. He's just not doing a very, very good job. And now he's going in to play a Colts team, which, you know, in my view is still somewhat mediocre. I'm not convinced this is a 10 or even an 11-win team, but I do believe that the Colts have more than enough weapons here to probably, in my view, win the game. And what I'm going to do is, instead of laying the 7 or 7.5 is the line now, I'm not going to touch that number. I just don't lay, usually ever, over a touchdown in the NFL. I just don't do it, but I'm willing to tease down the Indianapolis Colts here. I think they win the game, so I'm willing to tease that 7.5 down to 1.5. I'll put the Indianapolis Colts as one of my teaser plays this week. Carolina Panthers are playing at the Baltimore Ravens. Carolina looked absolutely dreadful last week at home against the Steelers. They're still 2-1. Baltimore is also 2-1 here, and they're on a 2-game winning streak. This is a really, really bad spot, I think, for the for Carolina to go into Baltimore. Generally, a very, very tough place to play. But I'm not going to lay this number. I think it's just laying a field goal here. The Ravens are just not proven to be a very good, very strong favorite. And I just frankly am not going to lay that kind of a number. Surprisingly, I'm going to go contrarian. This is more of a feel play than anything else. I really can't back it up with statistics, but I do believe you're going to see an over here. And that total is, I believe, right at 40.5. I think the lowest total on the board this week. I'm going to go over the 40.5, and here's why. First of all, I don't think the Carolina Panthers defense is that good. They haven't really played, except for the Steelers, I guess you could say. That's really the only decent team they've played, and you saw what the Steelers did, scoring, I think, 30-something points last week. Baltimore has been in an absolute offensive funk for a very long time. And I think that any time you see the Ravens in a spot where they can maybe score some points and maybe instill some confidence in what's been a very inconsistent offense, I think you'll see that. And I think Flacco and the Ravens here at home are in a very, very good position to probably score some points. I think that also forces Carolina to probably abandon their game plan, which is somewhat conservative, a lot of running. Cam Newton is maybe regressed since his first season or two, and I do believe that's going to force Carolina into either some mistakes or having to throw the ball. I think this game goes over the total, bit of a contrarian play based on what the reputations of these two teams are. The Detroit Lions are playing at the New York Jets. Here's a game that I absolutely love going under the total. This is my best bet of the week. Detroit on the road, only one game so far this season. They scored 7 points. Now they go into the New York Jets and they play the one of the NFL's very best defenses, the NFL's best defense against the run, and Detroit has just not proven the ability to go on the road and score points. Different team at home and a different team away. Detroit's also coming off a huge win at home and goes into a much tougher spot here. Yet I can't back the Jets. I think the line here, the Jets are a slight dog at 1.5, maybe 2 points. I'm not going to bet the Jets. A lot of disarray on the offense. We all saw what Geno Smith, the starting quarterback for the Jets, couldn't find the locker room in that stadium last week, and really looked horrific. A good part of that game. There's no way I can bet on the Geno Smith quarterback team at this time. However, I think this does play into an under. Marty Mortenweg is the former Detroit Lions head coach. He's not calling the shots on the offense for the New York Jets. There's no way that they're going to put this game on Geno Smith's shoulders. In fact, you could see Michael Vick coming off the bench if he really stinks it up. I do believe you're going to see a very conservative ball control offense. The Jets know that they can hold the Lions, and there's just no reason to take a lot of risks, throw a lot of interceptions. This is going to be an old-fashioned street brawl, a lot of running, a lot of high percentage passing. I think that plays towards an under. Total at this game was 45. That's where it opened up. It's now down to about 42.5, 43. It's moved 2.5 points under. My very best play of the week, the Detroit and New York Jets game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing at Pittsburgh. Here's my other teaser. Remember I talked about teaser with the Indianapolis Colts being the first leg of that 6-point, 2-team teaser. I'm also going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just can't see them, famous last words, can't see them losing at home to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay got absolutely humiliated, destroyed. That they were down 56-0 at one point 10 days ago in Atlanta, and now they have to go on the road again to Pittsburgh. Now this is not an automatic knee-jerk play. Everyone's going to say, "Oh, Tampa's terrible. There's no, this is the worst team in football." This is what most cappers do. They overreact to one single game. All the wheels fell off of the Buccaneers last week. I don't know if the Buccaneers are going to play that bad again. In fact, I don't expect them to. Which is why I'm not going to lay 7 or 7.5 for the Steelers. But I am going to bet on the prospect, the likely prospect, that the Steelers are just the better team here. Certainly the better offense, the more consistent team, playing at home. There's no way, in my view, the Steelers lose this game. No way, I hope, that they lose this game. So I'm going to tease the Steelers across all the key numbers, 7, 6, 4, and 3, and I'm going to lay the 1.5 for the Steelers. Combine that, hook that up with the Indianapolis Colts for the teaser of the week. Let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars playing at San Diego, one of the late games here, or the first of the late games. Obviously, everybody that watches football knows how bad the Jacksonville Jaguars are. There's nothing about this team that you can say that is at least bit instills any confidence. And I think I've bet the Jaguars all 3 weeks, and I've gone 0-3, of course. It's just been a dreadful, parade for anybody who bets on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm tempted to, if you put that, gun to my head, I will bet the Jaguars here at plus 13. But I just won't do it. Certainly, I can't bet on a team that just doesn't seem to have any kind of spirit, any sense of confidence. Maybe even they're abandoning. I don't know. Based on what I've read and seen some reports, maybe there's now some slippage of confidence in the coaching staff, and certainly the fans there are abandoning that team for what little support they had. So I think that the Jaguars here will eventually, I stress this, eventually they'll become a playable team. Last season I was one of those who bet the Jaguars repeatedly, but they did turn things around, at least point spread wise. What happens is there's such a bad team to bet on that they must just give them gobs of points for anybody to pull the trigger on them. So what happens is the line makers and the public obviously starts overreacting to how dismal a team is. I don't think the Jaguars have quite reached that stage yet, but they're getting close, and I'm not going to back them here, but I probably will look to back them at some point in the future. Maybe when they start getting 20 or 25 points a game. That's a game where I'm going to bet under. I think the Jaguars, this is a very similar spot to the Oakland Raiders playing last week at the New England Patriots. Do you remember that game? And I said this is one of the best unders of the week. The final score of that game was 16-9. They only scored 25 points. Total was up around 45 or 46, as I recall. So this is a very similar game. What you have is clearly an outmatched team, a home team coming off a big road victory, coming back, probably not taking the Jacksonville Jaguars that seriously. I don't think they're going to roll up 35, 40, however many points it takes to win. I think that you see a very lackadaisical kind of a, let's just win this game. Let's get out of town with no injuries. That's the mentality I think you see with the Chargers this week. Probably, I call this winning ugly. I think you'll see an ugly win by the Chargers here. They'll go do just enough to get by. Maybe winning a 24-10 kind of a game. Not a lot of excitement. This is a game where I think goes under that total, which is 44.5. Fairly high number. It's high because the Jaguars just have given up like 480 yards a game on defense and are just absolutely dreadful. But I'm not sure the Chargers roll up the score here. I just don't see it happening. So I'm going to go under that total of 44.5 in the Jacksonville at San Diego game. Philadelphia at San Francisco, a game that a lot of people are thinking bounce back time for the 49ers. Bounce back time, right? Because they've lost 2 straight to Chicago, losing at Phoenix also last week. Certainly the more desperate team here. One thing that's interesting here is this is not Candlestick Park. They're playing that other stadium in Santa Clara now, the new stadium. I don't think the 49ers have played a good game in that home field yet. I'm not suggesting anything that's mystical about this, but there's something about them have obviously not been comfortable yet in their home field. So when we say, oh, this is the home field for the 49ers, they hope the opener or whatever, they've stunk in the home games that they played in San Francisco. San Francisco is clearly a team on paper that I keep saying this, maybe the best team in the NFL except for the quarterback position. A very well-rounded team, certainly right there with Seattle, I think. But a desperate team. I'm not so sure that this is just about motivation and 49ers rallying and saying, let's win this one. I think Philadelphia is a gutsy team coming back 3 straight weeks with double-digit deficits to overcome. Real tough spot. You say they just won their divisional game last week against the Washington Redskins. They got to fly all the way west, and now they're just getting too many points here. That's my if this game was 3.5, I probably don't touch it. But the Eagles are getting like 5. And I'm going to take the hook there. I'm going to grab the bait, and I'm going to take the Eagles. I think the Eagles are a gutsy team. This is a very difficult offense for anyone to stop. Key point here, a very tough, confusing offense that runs a lot of different kinds of sets that it's very difficult to adjust for. And the 49ers just coming off that loss last week, I'm not sure they're going to figure out the Chip Kelly offense in 5 days, whatever the preparation time is. I think this is a close game. I think the points could matter. I'm going to go with the dog, the Eagles, against a lot of my friends who everyone says bounce back time for the 49ers, statement game for the 49ers. Until I see the 49ers play a good game at home, I'll fade that prospect, and I'll take the Eagles, the perfect 3-0 Eagles, to cover a fairly large number at +5. Atlanta Falcons are playing at Minnesota. Another golden under in my view. Another golden under, probably my second best bet of the week behind the Detroit-New York Jets game. Reason is very simple. You have the Atlanta Falcons who, at home have played very well, coming off a 10-day rest, winning 56, I think, to 14 last week, However, they're just not quite the same team on the road. They were completely shut down by the Cincinnati Bengals on the road in Week 2. Now they got to go into Minnesota. I'm not convinced that the Falcons are going to roll up points even against a bad team as the Vikings are. The thing is, the Vikings have turned into an under team. There's no question under Mike Zimmer, a defensive-minded coach. This defense is for real. We've seen the defense basically shut down the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans last week, where they lost 20-9. But anytime you hold Drew Brees and that high-octane offense of the New Orleans Saints to 20 points or less in New Orleans, that's a major accomplishment. I think it shows me that the Vikings are headed in the right direction, defensively at least. And this is also an outdoor game now. They're playing in that interim stadium. This is not a dome game for the Vikings, in which case I would be leaning toward an under. But you have, the weather elements, and you have an outdoor game for the Vikings where the Vikings scored, I think, 7 points in their only home game so far. So the Vikings' inability to score, they're starting Terry Bridgewater at quarterback this week because Castle is now out for the season. Rookie quarterback, there's no way that they prepare some kind of a game plan where they've got to have him throwing the ball and doing all kinds of crazy things. That will not happen. That does not happen with quarterbacks getting their first start in the NFL. Much more conservative game plan, much more let's stick to the basics. I think the Vikings don't score many points here. The Atlanta Falcons also, I don't think are going to produce a lot of points because they're playing against a very good defense on the road. Total in this game is, surprisingly, it's 46.5. Seems way too high for me. I'd have this at 42. I think it's off by a large number. I'll go under the 46.5. No opinion on the side. New Orleans, the Sunday night game, NBC's Sunday night game is New Orleans playing against the Dallas Cowboys. And here's a game where I'm going to go again, contrarian. I'm going to make a great argument to take the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm not going to take the Cowboys. Let me give you the argument for the Cowboys. First of all, this is a game where Dallas is getting +3 at home, which is a very strange line to me. The Cowboys 2-1, the Saints 1-2, playing a road game here. Dallas off 2 straight victories. And what would this line be if this game was in New Orleans? What this line is telling you that if this game was in New Orleans would be a 10-point favorite. Now let me translate what I mean by that. The Superdome is probably one of those teams like Seattle. There are certain teams you give them not just 3 points for home field advantage, you give them 4. Seattle's clearly one of those teams, maybe the Packers, maybe a few other teams. Certainly the Saints would belong in this equation as well. So if this game was played in New Orleans, you'd have 4 points for home field, and then based on this line, you would have essentially a 3 back the other way for Dallas in the home field, and then the 3 points there. This would be a 10-point line. That's a terrible. There's no way that Dallas is really that bad compared to the Saints, especially based on what we've seen. Also, the very fact that the New Orleans Saints have lost like 7 or 8 straight games on the road. 7 or 8 straight road losses for the Saints. So how can you possibly have the dog here, which is the Dallas Cowboys at home, the better team record-wise, getting the field goal? Well, everybody's going to be on the Cowboys with reasons that I think are completely justifiable. However, here's I think the big key, the big issue. New Orleans is sick and tired of a team that I follow very closely. Sick and tired, absolutely, really humiliated to the point where they're sick and tired of hearing this. We can't win on the road stuff. Now, it just happens to be true so far. We're losing all these games on the road. I think this is a prime time opportunity for the Saints to say, we're back. This is the game against somewhat of a rival. The two teams compete somewhat geographically for fan support. I think you'll see that the Saints not taking the Cowboys lightly at all. The key here is as follows. Everyone's talking about Dallas defenses look really good this season in the last couple of weeks. Look who they faced at quarterback. Look who they've faced at quarterback. Jake Locker, the quarterback for the Rams, is the backup. Name escapes me, not Hill, but the other gentleman. And then Colin Kaepernick. Anytime you can face those 3 quarterbacks, your numbers should look good. So the very fact that Dallas has faced 3, in my view, below average quarterbacks, unproven quarterbacks to a certain degree, and now they must face Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. This is like, just hugely stepping up in class. I think Dallas really struggles here defensively to stop the Saints. The question is, can they keep up on offense? Maybe so. The Saints have not looked good defensively, except for the game last week against Minnesota, which is an easy game because they're basically playing against a deflated offense for the Vikings. However, I think the New Orleans Saints have enough firepower, enough incentive, enough motivation here in a primetime game to go into Dallas and cover that 3. I'm going to go contrarian against what essentially most power rating type people or numbers people or statistics-based players would go for, which is to back the Cowboys here. I'm taking the other side of that. I'm taking the New Orleans Saints. I will lay the -3. Last game of the week is the New England Patriots playing at Kansas City. I'm playing this game over the total. This is a 45. I think the game just flies over for no other reason than there's two things. The Patriots' subpar offensive performance last week, I think they get it more in gear. You just don't see Belichick or Tom Brady offenses shut down for consecutive weeks. If you go back and look at times they didn't play well, they always seem to bounce back with a vengeance the following week. Also, the Chiefs playing at home, I think there's enough pride there in this team, who's really looked good the last 2 weeks. The Chiefs have covered for 2 straight weeks now on the road. There's enough pride in the Chiefs where they think they'll score a few points. Also, Monday Night Football, I just keep betting that those games over. The lines always haven't seemed to be caught up. The fact that these games go over by 3 or 4 points higher than average. I'm going to play this game over 45. I think it's not a great play. It's a lean, but I will go ahead and put a few bucks on the over 45 in the New England at Kansas City game. I'm Nolan Dalla. That's NFL week number 4. We've got 13 plays total. We'll see how we do. 11-5 last week. Let's hope we can have a winner this week. And cheers to much handicapping success. And we'll see you next week for NFL week number 5.